I know. It was just. I hope that this is really good. It felt really good to me, but I was just like, God, maybe I could just been like stepping all through. I have to I know that I like took your spot sometimes, and I was like, can you come up and do this? You're like, that's you. I don't always check that. Yeah. Excuse me. So one time I felt like I was facilitating. Yeah. She doesn't really know. She doesn't know my time, so I'm not good at it. Yeah. It'll happen. Yeah. It takes a while. Yeah. It takes a little while to get into that rhythm. Yeah. A long time, and actually I work really closely with an associate that's on projects with me, but we have co-facilitation. I'm thinking more about how can I like Amy and I kind of be more partners in this and not just me up front for taking notes. More of a presence. Really? One person thinks there's really city and ones that I know where they are. Well, a little just you have to. Yeah. I think we're in my screen. Yeah. Yeah. About one. Yeah. Oh, really? Oh my God. It's robust. Can you finish your last thought and come back to focus? Mike's ready. You have your last thought. So it feels like it gets more robust. The first day was kind of like, we're done. And this time it's like, okay, looks like they're still on it. So
Any insights, any ideas that you'd like to share with the whole group? Either that you said or that you heard from your partner. Tim?
Am I allowed to reference the questionnaire?
Yeah, sure. Talk about your insights. Oh, thank you.
Shirley and I were talking about how we've been gaining perspective on other people's viewpoints on the housing situation, on what Prop 10 means, and how it applies. And one of the questions on the questionnaire was, do you find yourself thinking about how it applies to your city or other cities? And the first 2 days I said my city, and yesterday Shirley and I both agreed that we switched to other cities. And we thought that was a pretty significant shift in thought process.
So at first it was about my city, it was about how this applies to me, and through this process it's you're opening up more, you're seeing more places, how it applies. Shirley.
And another thing Tim and I discussed was just the absolute power and strength surrounding terminology, and how you can just have one word and that can trigger something that will color your perception of the rest of the statement or cause you not to read the entire statement, and just how careful you have to be with your choices.
So how quickly words can change the feeling, the meaning of what we're trying to talk about. Other people, insights, ideas, questions. This is called wait time.
Steve and I were talking about, Steve and I were talking about, we're posting it on YouTube yesterday. Now, we also seen that there was the Oregon on there also. Now, were they doing the same prop on there? Prop
No,
10?
we have, so you two were watching this one on YouTube.
Right.
And then you saw the Oregon CIRs. And no, they're different propositions because there's different propositions in different states.
Okay.
And you said that they heard us singing "Are You Ready" on there.
Are they called initiatives in Oregon and propositions here? Is that the difference, or?
Yes, right, Lynn? Más o menos. Measures.
Okay.
Measures. Mm-hmm. Shalon.
Vic and I were discussing that he showed me that Healthy Democracy is on Facebook, and showed me the different pictures that are on there of us throughout this process. And so we looked at them because I didn't know that was there. So I thought that was interesting. There's a Facebook page. So if you guys all want to check yourselves out, we're on there.
Isn't that what we always do? We look at ourselves first, and then we decide if it's a good picture or not, right? Yeah, I think it's human nature. Anybody else? Any other insights, questions? Public displays of beauty? I'm sorry, Vic. Okay, on then, and next part.
Okay, so now I've pre-rolled my sleeves for you. Now we're going to get into the work. And this will go, there's kind of several steps to get you to your final statement, but you actually practiced a little bit yesterday with some of this. So some of it will feel a little bit familiar. So the first thing we need to do is hand out the ballot. So this is your list of strong and reliable claims. The full list of the strong and reliable claims that you worked through and got to that place by the end of yesterday. And so your job is to figure out, where do these claims go in the statement? Is it a key finding? And if you want to also reference your sample statement, which is on page 17, you can get a sense of, again, what goes into each of these sections. Key findings is the part of the statement that lists the most important information for voters to know, regardless of whether they support or oppose the measure. So they're key facts, so they should be relatively neutral in tone and not really swayed on one side or the other. Then you have your strongest reasons to support the measure, which would include the top 3 strongest reasons that the panel sees to support the measure, which will start with one of the claims you developed yesterday. plus some additional explanation that you'll get to write today. So if you look with your close eye, it's hard to read, small print, but each of the bullet claim then says this is important because. So you'll have to add some language in there today. And at the bottom of each of those strongest reasons to support and strongest reasons to oppose, there's a little summary statement. So you'll add some more language to this today that you had worked on yesterday. But we're going to start with the claims. So that will be the sort of key pieces of information to go in, and then you'll work a little bit on adding some summary around the strongest reasons. So to get that initial draft, we'll take you through a ranking exercise, which is what this is what you'll be doing is ranking. So eventually what you'll do is individually you'll rank. These are my top 8 key findings, and you'll just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Here's my top 3 reasons pro, 1, 2, 3, and my top 3 reasons con, 1, 2, 3. And we'll plug those into the machine, and then it'll pop out, basically your list, and it'll show you how they've been ranked collectively, how you've ranked them in each of these sections. So you can see that. What we will be avoiding is duplicating. So if there was a tie and one claim got into key finding and also a pro or con, we have some mechanism for bumping it so that it doesn't duplicate. Do you want to explain that? Yeah.
So the policy, if that happens, is that we select in the pro and con first. And the reason for that, and take it out of key findings and bump the next one up into key findings. And the reason for that is that pro and con tend to be more specific. You're sort of looking at, whereas key findings is sort of a general category. So if one ends up in both places, we've sort of discovered that panels generally feel like they constitute primarily whether they're a pro or a con, that those are like kind of the specific categories. So we pick those first.
All right. Okay, so let's just have you take a look at your claims, look through them. And I'd like to just invite you to talk with each other a little bit about what do you think? What are some of the rising top from your perspective on pro and con statements? Yeah, just have some conversation before we actually go into the ranking. Pat?
I had a question in that we have 20 of these, and as I count, we're going to end up with 14. Should we also be looking at those that we don't think should be included, or we just include everything at this point?
Well, so you won't be able to include everything. And so this is a chance for you to talk about that and say, okay, so I think this absolutely should go in, or probably could drop off. Okay. But that's what I'd like you to kind of look through those and talk with each other before we actually ask you to rank them. So you can inform each other and deliberate about that. Do you have your card up to talk? Dennis, do you want to? Oh, okay. Let's do that. Yeah, we'll give you a pencil in a moment. I'll get you that. So can I ask you to actually with the large groups so everybody can benefit from, can I ask you to do this in a large group so everybody can benefit from what you're sharing with each other? So Jenny and Michael, do you mind sharing out with the whole group what you're reflecting on right now?
Well, okay.
Okay. This is a chance for you to talk with each other as a large group so that you might inform each other about how you want to rank these.
I just kind of find how everything's kind of leading to like a yes kind of thing. Like on 26.3, it could be like Prop 10 can lead to generating restrictions on construction of new housing. Not that it doesn't do it. I mean, the municipalities could generate restrictions on it's opening it up to where municipalities are in control of the housing and rent control and all of it.
Uh-huh.
So it's almost, it does generate restrictions. It could. I mean, it could, but not right off the bat. Not like the second you vote for it, but later on it could.
Yeah, I think the immediate effect is not a restriction, but the consequence, because in the near future, no constructor, they would like to probably to construct new housing unit in the rental control area.
Mhm.
So that's the consequences. I think.
Okay. So do you want to suggest something about how you might rank that measure, or rather claim? A lot of language going around.
I just think it's misleading.
Okay.
That's all.
Tim? Oh. So we have Tim had his hand up, and then Steve.
We're not discussing edits though right now, right?
We are not editing.
Okay.
No. You guys did all that hard work yesterday.
The meaning of 26.3, I think if you took it, said Prop 10 in and of itself does not generate restrictions on construction of new units. Yes, but in and of itself, it doesn't.
Oh, sorry. Steve?
I'm thinking along the lines might be helpful, not necessarily for this discussion point right now, but a first step of like take out the pros and the cons out of the mix, the ones that point, like such as this 26.3, and put that into either the pro or the con, and then keep a running total before you step to the other key points.
As an approach, you would start with figuring out where the pros and cons are, and then see what you have left for key findings.
Yes.
Okay. Shirley, Rose, and Laura. Do I only have one microphone here? Okay. Shirley, Rose, Laura, and Michael C.
I think for me, my approach would actually be the opposite. In looking at key findings, this is easier for me to sort out what is actual factual and neutral, as opposed to those items that may be more of interest, as opposed to what are actual facts.
Okay.
I was just wondering what the purpose was of doing this yesterday, and then we're doing it again this morning. Is it in case we've changed our minds, or somebody convinces us otherwise, or?
So the intent yesterday of doing that was really for you to get kind of a visual of, do we have any gaps in being able to fill in this statement? And therefore, should we be looking to create new claims to give us more to work with today? So, and I think it also served to do just a little bit of a practice. But the intent was not that you did the ranking yesterday. It was just for you to kind of get that sense of the buckets of where these might go and whether or not there are some glaring gaps. Yeah. Laura?
I'd like to propose that number 37 be one of our key findings.
Okay. You want to say more about that?
It's, I think, one of our statements that really just defines exactly what Prop 10 is. Prop 10 would repeal the Costa-Hawkins Act, which currently provides exemptions for rent control on single-family dwellings, housing units built after 1995, and allows rent increases upon vacancy for a unit already rent-controlled. I mean, that's, I think, a pretty neutral statement about what Prop 10 actually does.
Okay. Michael?
Well, I just want to apologize to the committee and my fellow panelists, because my brain was soft yesterday. And after Michelle came up with the statement that you just read, is when I should have thought of this, and I didn't. But that was the what. That's what it is. But we don't have any of the why. All the stuff that we got from the pro side is 70% of rent burden, 70% can't afford it, 30% of rent burden, all that kind of stuff. We don't have any, and I didn't focus on it until this morning. When you look at the sample and you look at what we have, if somebody reads only our stuff, they could barely say, why? And I'm sorry.
Michael, maybe that's something we can develop into this summation that goes under not the key findings, but maybe the strongest, and rather the pro and the con, maybe work some sort of summation in there.
Mike, Rose is back up.
Yeah, there's 20, I guess 20 here, and certainly some are stronger and more reliable than others. And I was looking at them and looking at the pros and cons. In other words, look at the pro side and take something that's very specific, very strong and reliable. It's a matter of fact, and that would become a pro. And then get the pros out of the way, then do the same on the con side. That is the strongest, and then go and try to figure out 8 key findings. And I don't think a key finding has to have a why. It's just a fact, like Laura said. This is what that the repeal will do. And when you look at the example here, that's kind of how these examples go. And so that's kind of where I go.
Okay.
Sorry.
I think he might be responding. Are you responding to this? And then if we can go to Rose after that.
Just to the extent that that voters we're helping the voters, I think it'd be helpful for them to know why it's being considered to begin with.
I was just going to comment that I don't think it's up us to decide why. This is a proposition. We didn't come up with it. We don't have it. We don't have a stake in it. We're not saying why it needs to be changed. We're just reviewing it.
Okay. All right. So as you're looking through these, does anybody want to offer to your fellow panelists? I think this one really should go in to one of these different categories. Pat? And then Mike?
In some ways, it seems as though this might be better done in a smaller group where we can sit down and talk it out and then help rank it rather than try it as a group as a whole.
Yeah, and you will do individual rankings. So actually you won't be, that's not going to be the group exercise. This is really just a chance for you to offer up your kind of what is your analysis as you're looking at this. You know, if you want to offer up some suggestions to the group before we go into the ranking. And then you will be working in small groups to add the extra detail that we were talking about in the summaries of the pro and con. Mike, yeah, sorry.
Yeah, back kind of to my previous statement that some are stronger and more reliable than others. And for example, my example was on the pro side under 16.2. Under rent control, renters would have a fair expectation to annual rent increases. I think that's a very strong and reliable statement based on the pro side that's one reason a voter would vote for this proposition, because it's very explicit. And our pro advocate was mentioned that, how homeowners have all these benefits to their home, but the renters don't have anything on these annual increases. So that's why I think that statement is definitely a pro statement.
Okay, is your card still up? Okay. Yes. Do you want to say something? Okay.
Just keep the mic right here. Everybody should know my opinion. I wanted to propose that 21.3 be put, I feel is also important besides the Costa-Hawkins definition. Prop 10 allows local communities to determine which type of housing is subject to rent control, communities could potentially change the number of rent-controlled units available.
And you're proposing that for, did you have a section that you would put that in?
I think I think it should be in the key findings. I think it's part of the summary of what this is. So I feel like it should be at the top.
Laura.
I would suggest that 15.3 also belongs in key findings.
And I recommend that 26.3 belong in key findings as well.
Okay.
How of another pro side, 2.1, Proposition 10 does not take away rental property owners' guarantee of a fair rate of return.
Okay.
Very specific, very strong.
All right. So does anybody have questions either for your other panelists about any of these claims or for me about what I'm about to ask you to do, which is to do the ranking on your own? Does anybody have any other questions or comments before we go into that?
Can I have a pencil?
Do you feel ready? Mike needs a pencil. We will get you a pencil. Sure, Long.
I just have a point of clarification. Because what I looked at is the worksheet that we had for yesterday, the claims findings, pro and con. I think that it will be helpful for us to use that because we all identified which ones we thought were key findings versus pro versus con. And we can use those and look at it when we're doing our claims ranking ballot and look at our key findings and then put those in order according to that so that you're not starting from scratch.
Okay, so the suggestion is reference back to what you did yesterday to see if you can carry some of that forward from that starting point, not from scratch. Okay.
But we would still only pick 8 key findings and
Yeah, you
3
have-
pro, and so 14.
Yep, you get 8 key findings and then 3 pro and 3 con. Okay, are we ready? Are you ready? Are you ready? So we're going to give you about 10 minutes to do the ranking. If you need a little more time, that's fine. What I would ask is please respect the other panelists because some people will need more or less time than you. And so take a quiet break. When you're done, just let us know that you've got it and one of us will pick it up for you. And then you can take a break. But please do just try to stay quiet while this is going on so people can really focus and concentrate and do the work. And if you have any process questions, we're here. So just raise your hand and we'll come help you. Lynn? Oh, real quick, just a moment.
Just a reminder, and forgive me if you've said this, to number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in the first column, and use the numbers 1, 2, and 3 in the second column, 1, 2, and 3 in the third column.
Yeah, so they will be ranked in order. So your number 1 should say 1, and then your 8th favorite should say 8, right? So that'll help us get it into the right order.
sheets in as soon as possible. And we'll be starting again in about 30 seconds. So it's going to be 5 minutes, but the people who are still filling them out, we need them. So sit down, have your coffee, 5 minutes.
Coffee's about out. Okay, we'll take care of that. That's very important. Yeah, that could be desperate. All right, if we could ask folks to come back to the large group. You're up. Yeah.
When they're talking here, they should also be right.
Oh, take notes. Cool, thank you.
I know. Michael said had some. Also, we're still having one set by but I will tell you. I plotted a little shop in Mexico City. And well, we went to the restaurant last night, and there was one that almost has the same exact frame. And I just happened to have brought it. And thought, okay, I'll wear it on the Mexican. My grandson, no, I recommend beautiful Frida pillows that I bought him. He bought his three doctors. And I showed him reading Diego, and I go, who's that? And he goes, Daddy? And Daddy's a little brown and bald. Yeah, we went to that one. Yeah, really good. Yeah, you just like walk out and go over to the board. We tried to get reservations like 3 times. But there's like a little like a bar in the front. And that's where they have this exact bar with this. It was not by accident. Let's see if they're ready. Oh, you're ready. We are going to start. Yay. I thought I saw Michael come in.
Just getting more ice.
Ah, okay.
We have more coffee
Coffee's on the way.
Yay, coffee. Okay, so far, so good. Any questions about the process so far? Okay, so we are now going to look at the drafting group worksheets. Oh, not yet. They're going to be in the back table. Sorry. This part is new, and we've redone some of it. So if I say something and it looks like I don't understand, raise your hand and say, do you understand what we're about to do? Okay, so you must agree together on one first draft. But we're going to start individually by oh, this is the rules for the small groups. Is that what I'm doing? Are we getting them into the groups first, or I should? Pro-con first drafts. Well, I'm on the wrong page. Help me find it. I thought I had it out. 4.2, there it is, right there. Oh, I'm glad it's the only mistake I've ever made. Okay, and the first part it says to say, bear with us. So He wrote that knowing I was going to do this. Okay, bear with us. This section requires a little explanation, but it's important. Thank you for that, Lynn. We're now ready to move into the drafting process for the strongest reasons to support and strongest reasons to oppose sections of the citizen statement, which you can see at the bottom of the sample statement. Each of you will have a part in crafting parts of both the pro and con statements. And of course, this being the CIR, they're chosen randomly. As you can see from the sample statement, there are 4 parts to the pro and con statement. 3 factual findings, each with a reason why it's important to the pro or con side, plus a brief summary statement. These 3 findings on each side are the 3 that you prioritized just now. But the reasons why they are important and the summary statements at the bottom are what you're going to be writing now. So here is the process. Wait for it. There you go. So first, in 4 groups, we're going to be writing the first drafts of pro and con reasons and summaries. After that, we're going to be writing the second drafts. And then we'll go in, and that will be in groups in 4 groups as well. And then we're going to go into 2 big groups. And one will be revising the full pro, and the other will be revising the full con. And this again will be random. And finally, we will hit the final review. Any questions so far? Now I have to find the other page to this. 4-2. That's it, I think. No.
I have a question.
Yes.
I didn't really hear you talking about the outcome of the rankings and how it falls into play here.
So they are ready to go. Go for it, Lynn.
So we've tallied all those numbers and added them together and took the lowest number to get your sort of collective ranking in those 3 categories. And you will see in a moment when you move small groups names that are now your finding for the first finding for pro and second finding for pro and third finding for pro and the same for con. And those are based on that ranking that you just did. And you'll get the reveal of the key findings rankings in just a little bit later.
Okay. So 4 groups. And then we're going to switch papers. So it's be the same ones, but we're going to switch papers and then 2 larger groups to make sure that each side statement works. Then back to the full group for one last.
Are we going to work on randomizing them, or are they already random?
They're already random. You will get what you're getting.
Okay. In terms of the ranking, you're not going to tell us how they ranked. You're going to give them to us random. These 3 ranked in the pro side. These 3 ranked in the con side.
No, they're according to your rank. So for example, if a lot of people marked a number 1 for a certain claim, then it'll probably end up as the first pro ranking.
So they will be ranked,
They
not
are.
random per
No.
se when we get them. Okay.
That's right.
That's what I
yes.
was confused
It's the top 3
got
and
it.
the top 3.
Okay.
Yep,
That you
exactly.
get as a group collectively. That's how they got it.
The only random that might come into it is if there were a tie, then the spreadsheet picks a random number and breaks the tie. But otherwise it's according to your collective ranking.
Okay. Just a couple last pieces of information, things to be thinking about. We know that you'll be working on crafting arguments that you may not agree with personally. That's part of the point. That's part of what makes the citizen statement a trustworthy document and what makes the arguments for both sides as strong as they can be. If you don't necessarily agree with the overall point of view, but you still find the argument to be a little convincing, and of course it has to be based on strong and reliable information, then you know you've hit on something that's going to be workable. We're asking you again to step into the shoes of folks who might vote for each side. In fact, as always, stay in learning mode. Don't talk about how you would personally vote. Keep focused on the task in hand. And the task is providing your fellow voters with the best quality information. Any questions so far other than what group are you going to be in? And we'll all be moderating these, so when we get there, if you have other questions, we'll be able to answer them there. Okay, random piece, Damon and Michelle are about to pass out the cards, and this will tell you where you're going. Can you start, wait a minute, start back there with Big, or Pat. If you start with Big, back there and move this way. Big. To the left, yeah. And if I can just keep your attention while we're doing